Get out, you worthless failure. Those were the last words my father ever said to me as a daughter. His face twisted with disgust, finger pointing to the door like I was garbage that needed removal. Behind him, my stepmother smiled. My name is Vivian Morgan. When my father threw me out that night, calling me worthless, he didn't know I had just closed a $200 million deal. He had no idea that his failure daughter had built a biotech empire while he was busy belittling her dreams. So I simply said, okay, and walked out. The next day, I bought a beachfront mansion in Florida. 2 weeks later, their entire financial world collapsed. Have you ever been completely erased by the people who should love you most? Had your entire existence reduced to nothing in a single moment? I have. And what I did next changed everything. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or thrown away by family, hit that subscribe button now. My story is one you won't want to miss. Before I tell you how my father and stepmother came crawling back, let me introduce myself properly. I'm Vivian Morgan, 32 years old, founder and CEO of LifeCode Algorithms. We develop personalized medicine delivery systems that have revolutionized patient care across 12 countries. Our platform matches genetic profiles with medication responses, cutting treatment failure rates by 68% and saving thousands of lives annually. But my family never saw that woman. They never bothered to look. My story begins in a small manufacturing town outside Detroit. My mother, brilliant, gentle, encouraging, died of cancer when I was 12. She was the only one who ever told me my mind was extraordinary. Your brain works differently, Viv, she'd say, brushing my hair back from my face. That's not wrong. It's your superpower. Dad remarried 18 months after we buried her. Judith came with opinions about everything, especially me. In her world, girls became nurses or teachers, married local boys, and had babies. They didn't waste time with computers or dream of starting companies. She's always got her nose in those science books, she'd complain to my father. No boy wants a know-it-all. Dad, who'd once cheered my science fair victories when Mom was alive, gradually adopted Judith's perspective. My academic achievements became showing off. My coding projects became antisocial behavior. My business ideas became unrealistic fantasies. Meanwhile, my younger sister Bree thrived in this new family dynamic. Pretty, sociable, and conventional, she checked all the boxes Judith valued. She became a dental hygienist, married her high school boyfriend, and had 2 children by 28. At every family gathering, they'd parade her choices as the template for success while my accomplishments collected dust in the corner. I left for MIT at 18 on a partial scholarship. The day I packed the car, Dad said, "Don't come back thinking you're better than us just because you went to some fancy school." I didn't realize then that he was already afraid of who I might become. I dropped out after 2 years, not because I couldn't handle the work, but because I saw an opportunity. A healthcare algorithm I developed caught the attention of a visiting lecturer who became my first investor. While my family told everyone I'd failed college, I was actually building the foundation of what would become a multi-million-dollar company. For 10 years, I lived in a world of contradictions. Professional respect and family contempt. Industry recognition and hometown ridicule. Investor confidence and parental dismissal. I maintained contact with them out of some misguided sense of obligation. Monthly phone calls. Holiday visits. Occasional dinners where I'd sit quietly as they listed my shortcomings as if reading from a well-rehearsed script. Why did I endure it? That's the question everyone asks. The truth is complicated. Even after everything, some childish part of me hoped that one day, just once, my father would look at me with the pride he showed when introducing Bree. That he'd see me, really see me, and recognize what I'd built. But people can only see what they're willing to look for. And my father had stopped looking for me a long time ago. My relationship with my father and Judith wasn't just strained, it was calculated emotional warfare. They had perfected the art of diminishing me through 1,000 paper cuts, each one small enough to deny but deep enough to scar. Their tactics were consistent and effective. They'd ask about my work with exaggerated patience, as if humoring a child's imagination. "Still playing with your little computer program?" Dad would say, though my little program had secured $50 million in Series B funding the previous year. Judith specialized in comparative destruction. "Bree's husband just got promoted to regional manager," she'd announce over dinner. Then, turning to me with mock concern, "Are you still working out of coffee shops, dear? At your age, stability is so important." Family photos on their walls told the complete story. Bree's wedding, prominently displayed. Bree's children, covering the refrigerator. Bree's dental school graduation, framed in the hallway. The only image of me was a high school photo tucked on a bookshelf behind a decorative clock. When I achieved something significant, a major contract, a technological breakthrough, a feature in a trade publication, they developed selective amnesia. News would be met with distracted nods, subject changes, or worst of all, silence followed by, "Well, nobody really understands what you do anyway." My father's dismissal was particularly brutal because it hadn't always been that way. Before Mom died, he'd been different, prouder, more engaged. I have fragmented memories of him cheering at science competitions, helping me build a computer from spare parts, calling me his little genius. Judith didn't create his cruelty, she merely gave him permission to express it. She provided a new narrative, that my intelligence was threatening rather than valuable, that my ambition was arrogance rather than drive, that my success was luck rather than skill. Over time, I constructed a protective shell. I stopped sharing details about my company. I deflected personal questions. I limited visits to major holidays and occasional Sunday dinners. I maintained the appearance of family ties while emotionally disconnecting from their judgment. The strangest part? I kept supporting them financially, quietly, discreetly. When their furnace broke during a brutal winter, I paid for the replacement. When Dad needed dental surgery insurance wouldn't cover, I handled the bill. When Bree's husband needed startup funds for his restaurant, I provided the capital through an anonymous LLC. Not because they deserved it, but because I needed to prove, to myself more than anyone, that I wasn't who they claimed I was. I wasn't selfish or cold or uncaring. I was capable of generosity even toward those who showed me none. This complex dance continued for years. Me achieving, them dismissing. Me helping, them taking. Me hoping, them disappointing. Until that final Sunday dinner, the night everything shattered and reformed. The dinner that changed everything wasn't meant to be significant. It was just another obligation, another performance of family connection that had long ago lost its meaning. I arrived at their suburban colonial house at 5:30 p.m. sharp, parking my modest rental car in the driveway. I always rented something unassuming when visiting, a Honda or Toyota, nothing that would trigger comments about showing off. I wore simple jeans and a beige sweater, hair pulled back, minimal jewelry. The costume of humility I'd perfected over years of their criticism. Under my arm, I carried a bottle of Bordeaux that cost more than their monthly car payment. These small acts of rebellion were how I maintained my sanity, knowing the quality of what I provided while they remained oblivious. Judith answered the door with her standard once-over, the subtle scan for flaws that had become her greeting. "You look tired," she said, pressing her thin lips together. "Have you been sleeping?" Translation: "You look awful." "I've been busy," I replied, handing her the wine. "A productive kind of tired." She glanced at the bottle without recognition of its value. "Your father's in the living room. Dinner's almost ready." The house smelled of roasted salmon and lemon, one of Dad's favorites. Family photos lined the entryway, a gallery of Bree's life with mere footnotes of mine. I moved through the familiar hallway into the living room, where Dad sat in his recliner watching a golf tournament. "Hi, Dad." He glanced up, nodding slightly. "You're late." I wasn't. I was exactly on time, as always. "Traffic," I lied, taking a seat on the sofa across from him. He took a long sip from a tumbler of scotch, his third, judging by the glazed look in his eyes and the looseness in his shoulders. "So what's new with your internet thing?" My internet thing had just been valued at $843 million. That morning, I'd received an acquisition offer for my stake, $212 million. The largest deal of my career. Life-changing money that would secure my future and legacy forever. It's going well, I said simply. We've had some promising developments. That's nice, he replied, attention already drifting back to the television. Dinner proceeded with the usual rhythms. Judith's passive-aggressive comments about my appearance. Dad's dismissive questions about my work. The inevitable comparisons to Bree's real-life achievements, her children's school performances, her husband's job promotion, their recent kitchen renovation. I ate methodically, nodding at appropriate intervals, asking the expected questions about their lives. It was a script we'd all perfected, a performance of family that contained no actual familial warmth. Until Dad refilled his scotch for the fourth time. Your sister's youngest just got into the gifted program, he announced, voice slightly slurred. 6 years old and already showing real potential. I smiled politely. That's wonderful. Must run on her father's side, Judith added with a sharp laugh. The Morgan genes tend more toward. She waved her hand vaguely. Toward what? I asked, though I knew better. Dad leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Let's be honest, Vivian. You're 32 with nothing to show for it. No husband, no children, no real career. I have a career, Dad. A successful one. Playing with computers isn't a career, Judith interjected. It's what teenagers do in basements. I set my fork down carefully. I run a biotech company with 78 employees across 3 countries. We're revolutionizing personalized medicine delivery. Company? Dad laughed, the sound harsh and grinding. You mean that little website thing? Stop embarrassing yourself. It's not a website, it's a medical algorithm platform that. We're tired of your excuses, Judith interrupted, voice rising. Always the dreamer, never the achiever. Your father worked 40 years at the plant. 40 years of real work, not whatever you pretend to do on that laptop. I felt an odd calm settling over me as they continued their tirade. The room seemed to narrow, their voices becoming distant as clarity washed through me like cool water. They'd never see me, not really. Not the nights I worked until dawn, not the investors who believed in me, not the teams I'd built. Dad slammed his glass down, liquid sloshing onto the tablecloth. You're just like your mother. Head in the clouds. Useless. And there it was. The final blow. Using my dead mother, the only person who'd ever truly seen me, as a weapon against me. Something shifted inside me at that moment. Not a break, but a release. Like a knot untying after years of tension. I stood up slowly, tucked my chair in carefully, and picked up my purse. Okay. They looked startled by my calmness. Okay? Dad mocked, eyebrows rising. That's all you have to say? I nodded once. Yes. Okay. As I walked toward the door, Judith called after me, running away again? That's all you've ever been good at. I paused at the threshold, turned, and said softly, goodbye. Not see you later. Not talk soon. Goodbye. Walking to my car that night felt like crossing a boundary between 2 different realities. Behind me, the house where I'd endured years of emotional violence. Ahead, a future suddenly unburdened by the weight of seeking approval I'd never receive. As I backed out of the driveway, I could see them through the dining room window, Dad gesturing angrily, Judith nodding with that self-satisfied expression she wore whenever I'd been properly put in my place. They were laughing. Actually laughing at having driven me away. What they couldn't see was my phone, still lit with notifications. Acquisition offer confirmed, $212 million with accelerated payment schedule. Board approval unanimous documents ready for final signature. What they couldn't know was that while they were dismissing me as useless, I was becoming one of the wealthiest women in medical technology. I drove a mile from their house, pulled into an empty church parking lot, and sat in silence. I expected to cry. To scream. To feel something, anger, hurt, loss. But instead, a strange lightness filled me, expanding through my chest like the first deep breath after nearly drowning. The weight was gone. The crushing pressure to earn their approval, their respect, their love, it had evaporated the moment I walked out that door. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and saw something new: freedom. For 20 years, I'd been trying to prove my worth to people determined not to see it. I'd been fighting for a place at a table where I was never welcome. I'd been pouring energy, love, and money into a bottomless pit that gave nothing in return. And now, with a single word, okay, I'd released myself from that prison. I called my real estate agent from that parking lot. "Marianne? It's Vivian Morgan. That oceanfront property in Boca Raton, is it still available?" "Yes, but there are 2 other offers already. If you're serious, we should move quickly." "I'll take it. Full asking price, cash offer, expedited closing. I want to be in by Friday." "Friday? But that's..." "Make it happen. Whatever it takes." I ended the call and started driving, not back to my hotel, but south. Toward the airport. Toward Florida. Toward a home that would be mine alone, filled with nothing but possibility. By Tuesday, I'd signed the papers on a minimalist glass and steel beachfront estate. By Wednesday, I'd authorized the acquisition deal that made me a centimillionaire. By Friday, I'd moved into my new home with nothing but 3 suitcases and a laptop. The house echoed with emptiness when I first walked in: 6,000 square feet of marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and rooms waiting to be filled. I walked through each space slowly, trailing my fingers along cool walls, my bare feet making no sound. This was mine. Earned through my intelligence, my persistence, my vision. Not given, not inherited, not dependent on anyone's approval. That first night, I slept on a mattress delivered hastily to the master bedroom. No furniture yet, no artwork, no decor. Just me and the sound of waves crashing against the shore beyond my windows. I woke at dawn and walked out onto the beach. The sand was cool beneath my feet, the horizon painted in impossible colors as the sun emerged from the ocean. I stood at the water's edge, letting waves wash over my ankles, and realized something profound. The ocean never demands you to be anything other than exactly what you are. 2 weeks passed in blissful silence. I hired a personal chef, a housekeeper, and an interior designer. I began assembling a home that reflected the woman I'd become, not the failure they'd insisted I was. I meditated at dawn, swam at dusk, and in between, built the next phase of my empire. Not once did I look back. Not once did I reach out to them. Not once did I doubt my decision to walk away. Until the first call came. Dad's number flashed on my screen exactly 18 days after he'd told me to get out. I watched the phone vibrate against my marble countertop but made no move to answer it. When it finally stopped, I continued reviewing architectural plans for my office renovation as though nothing had happened. 1 minute later, the notification appeared, one new voicemail. "Vivian, it's your father. Call me back. It's important." His voice lacked its usual commanding tone. Instead, he sounded strained, almost nervous. I deleted the message without a second thought and returned to my plans. 3 more calls came that day. 5 the next. Each sent to voicemail, each deleted without response. By the 3rd day, Judith had joined the campaign, her messages growing increasingly frantic. "Vivian, this is Judith. Your father and I need to speak with you immediately. The bank has frozen our accounts. There's been some kind of mistake with your father's pension. Call us back." No mistake. Just consequences. I poured myself a glass of wine and walked out to my terrace, watching the sunset turn the ocean to molten gold. Their financial problems weren't surprising. I'd noticed the signs for years: the refinanced mortgages, the maxed-out credit cards, their neighbor Russell's exclusive investment opportunity that had obviously been a scam. Now it had all collapsed, and suddenly the daughter they'd thrown away like garbage had become valuable again. Too bad. If you've ever had to stand your ground against toxic family members, give this video a thumbs up right now. Have you experienced that moment when you finally decided enough is enough and walked away? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might help someone else find the courage to choose themselves. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button to follow more stories about standing tall when others try to make you feel small. By day 7 of their calling campaign, my father and Judith had enlisted reinforcements. My Aunt Claudia called, then my Uncle Warren, then my cousin Tessa. All with the same message: your parents are in trouble. They need your help. I didn't answer any of them. On day 10, the emails started. From Dad: Vivian, this is childish. We need to discuss an urgent family matter. Call immediately. From Judith: your father can't sleep. We might lose the house. Please don't be spiteful. From Dad again: is this how you repay us for everything we've done for you? I created a new email filter that automatically archived anything from their addresses. Out of sight, out of mind. My days continued in peaceful productivity. I expanded LifeCode's operations into 2 new hospital systems. I hired a renowned biochemist to head our research division. I swam in my infinity pool each morning, watching the sunrise paint the sky in impossible colors. I was building a life that had no space for their toxicity. On day 15, my sister Bree called. Unlike our parents, I answered her. Viv, you need to call Mom and Dad. They're in serious trouble. Judith isn't my mother, I replied calmly, watching a pelican dive into the ocean. And what kind of trouble? Financial. Dad's pension fund collapsed, some kind of fraud. They're about to lose the house. They need help. That's unfortunate. Unfortunate? That's all you have to say? They're your parents. Are they? I asked softly. The last time I saw them, Dad called me worthless and kicked me out of his house. Silence hung between us. Look, she finally said, her voice softening, they were harsh, but they've always been that way. You know how Dad is. They need $38,000 to stop the foreclosure. I don't have it. I smiled slightly. And what makes you think I do? I saw it, Viv. The article in Tech Innovator. Medical delivery revolutionary secures historic funding. That was you, wasn't it? Your algorithm? Yes. So you have money. I do. Then help them. I closed my eyes, remembering every dismissive comment, every time they'd chosen my sister over me, every dinner where my accomplishments were minimized while hers were celebrated. No. What do you mean, no? They're family. Family doesn't call you worthless. Family doesn't throw you out. Family believes in you. They made mistakes, but not mistakes, Bree. Choices. They made choices, over and over, to tear me down. Now I'm making mine. She started crying. Please, Viv. I know they hurt you. But they're desperate. I was desperate too, once. For their approval. For their love. Did they give it to me then? She had no answer. I'm not cruel, I continued after a moment. Tell them to have their financial advisor contact my assistant. I'll have him review their situation. Thank you, Don't thank me yet. I didn't say I'd help. I said I'd look. After hanging up, I walked along the shoreline, letting cool waves wash over my feet. Why had I even offered that much? Perhaps some small part of me still wanted to be the bigger person. Or perhaps I wanted them to face me as a supplicant, not a daughter, to acknowledge, finally, that the child they dismissed had become someone with power they now needed. My financial advisor, Malcolm, called the next day while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Ms. Morgan, I've reviewed your parents' situation. It's quite dire. Details? I kept my voice neutral, professional. Multiple refinanced mortgages have left them with almost no equity in the home. Credit card debt exceeds $42,000 across 7 cards. They invested approximately $380,000, virtually all of your father's pension, in the Halcyon Fund, which the SEC has now confirmed was fraudulent. Bottom line? They're looking at bankruptcy and foreclosure within 30 days unless they can secure immediate funds. Your stepmother called me directly 6 times yesterday, asking about terms for a family loan. I laughed softly. Family loan. Interesting term for someone who told me last month that I wasn't really family since I wasn't blood related to her. What would you like me to do? I watched sunlight dance across the waves outside my window. Send them my standard investment terms. 15% interest, full financial transparency, and monthly audits. Ms. Morgan, he hesitated, those are rather stringent terms for family. Those are my terms for everyone, Malcolm. Especially family. After we hung up, I knew what would come next. The outrage. The guilt trips. The emotional manipulation. Sure enough, within hours of Malcolm sending the loan documents, my phone exploded with notifications. From Dad, 15% interest? Monthly audits? We're not some business deal. From Judith, your father is having chest pains from the stress. Is that what you want? From Dad again, your sister says you bought some fancy house in Florida while we're about to lose everything. Is that how we raised you? To be selfish? I listened to each voicemail once, then deleted it. Their words no longer had power over me. Their attempts at manipulation, the guilt, the obligation, the emotional blackmail, slid off me like water off glass. Then came the text that crossed the line. Dad, your mother would be ashamed of you. Using my dead mother, the only person who had ever truly seen and valued me, as a weapon against me. Again. Just as he had the night he kicked me out. I blocked their numbers after that. 2 days after blocking their calls, my security system chimed as I was reviewing research data in my office. I glanced at my tablet to see their decade-old sedan idling at my gate, Dad hunched over the steering wheel, Judith dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. They'd driven over 1,000 miles to show up uninvited at my door. I picked up the intercom. Yes? Dad's head snapped up at my voice. Vivian? Let us in. We need to talk. Did we schedule a meeting? A meeting? We're your parents, for God's sake. The last time we spoke, you called me worthless and told me to get out. Has something changed? Judith leaned over into the driver's side, her face appearing in the camera. Vivian, please. We're sorry about that. Your father was upset. We both were. We didn't mean it. You meant every word, I replied calmly. You've meant every cruel thing you've ever said to me. The only difference is now you need something from me. Dad's face contorted with familiar anger. Is this how you treat family? We raised you. You housed me. There's a difference. Please, Judith's voice broke. We're about to lose everything. I considered this. How does it feel? What? How does it feel to lose everything? To have no options? To need help from someone you've always looked down on? Silence. That's how I felt every time I sat at your dinner table. Every holiday. Every birthday. The worthless daughter. The disappointment. The failure. We were trying to motivate you, Dad muttered. No. You were trying to control me. To make me small enough to fit your understanding of the world. I watched them on the security monitor, these 2 people who had shaped so much of my pain. I'll have my assistant send over the loan paperwork again. If you choose to sign it, you'll keep your house. If not, that's your choice. Either way, I won't be seeing you today. I disconnected and watched as Dad pounded the steering wheel, as Judith sobbed into her hands. Then they drove away, diminishing to a speck on the coastal highway. That evening, I received an email from my sister. Viv, I can't believe you wouldn't even let them in. They drove 4 hours to see you. Dad's blood pressure is so high the doctor wanted to hospitalize him. Is this really the person you want to be? Cold and vengeful? They got your loan terms. 15% interest? Monthly audits? They're not some business associates, they're our parents. This isn't you, Viv. The money has changed you. Bree. I considered her words carefully as I walked along the shoreline that evening, waves lapping at my ankles. Had the money changed me? Or had it simply given me the freedom to become who I always was beneath the weight of their expectations? I typed my response. Bree. The terms reflect the relationship. They never gave me anything without conditions. Why should I do differently? The money hasn't changed me. It's revealed me. And it's revealed them too. When I was struggling, they called me worthless. When I needed emotional support, they told me to grow up. When I shared my dreams, they laughed. Now they need me, and suddenly I'm family again? I'm not being vengeful. I'm being truthful. For the first time in my life, I'm not pretending that their behavior is acceptable just to keep the peace. I understand this puts you in a difficult position. You've always been the favored one, so this dynamic is new for you. But ask yourself, if they hadn't needed money, would they ever have apologized for what they said to me? Love. Vivian. 3 days passed without any contact. On the 4th morning, my assistant notified me that the loan documents had been returned, signed, and notarized. My father had scrawled a note on the last page, "Happy now? You've humiliated us completely." I filed it away without response and authorized the transfer of $38,000 to their bank account. Business completed. That night, I received one more email from my father. The money arrived. Thank you for your generosity. I hope your pound of flesh was worth the price of our relationship. We won't be bothering you again. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened a bottle of wine and walked out to my terrace. The night was clear, stars reflecting in the dark ocean like scattered diamonds. I raised my glass to the horizon. To freedom, I whispered. And to boundaries that should have been set years ago. For the first time since walking out of their house, I felt tears gathering. Not from sadness or regret, but from release. I had finally stopped seeking approval from people incapable of giving it. I had stopped pretending that their treatment of me was acceptable. I had stopped diminishing myself to fit their limited view of who I should be. The loan wasn't an act of revenge. It was a business transaction, clean, impersonal, with clear terms. Just like our relationship had always been, beneath the facade of family. With that chapter closed, I refocused on building my life and expanding my company. The next month passed in productive serenity. I hired 30 new employees, launched a fellowship program for young women in computational medicine, and finalized plans for LifeCode's next-generation mobile platform. I dated occasionally, enjoying the company of men who saw me clearly and valued what they saw. I made new friends among the tech elite who'd relocated to Florida's growing Silicon Beach, people who understood ambition and innovation without judgment. I began to build a life unburdened by the past, by expectations that weren't my own, by relationships that drained rather than nourished. Then the profile dropped. Fortune magazine ran a feature, "The Quiet Revolutionary: How Vivian Morgan's Algorithm is Changing Patient Outcomes and Making Her Rich in the Process." The 8-page spread included photos of me in my beach house, interviews with my colleagues, and details about my journey from rejected idea to industry transformation. It mentioned, in passing, my estrangement from family who didn't support her vision. Within hours of publication, my phone exploded with congratulatory messages from colleagues, investors, and industry leaders. Then came the other notifications. From Dad, via email, "Since I'd blocked his number, saw your article. Didn't realize you were so important now that you can't return calls." From Judith, also email, "We showed the magazine to everyone at church. Pastor Jim was so impressed. When are you coming to visit? We miss you." From Bree, text, "Congrats on the feature. Dad's been showing it to everyone like he's suddenly your biggest fan. Funny how that works. Coffee soon? I didn't respond to any of them. How predictable they were. My success was embarrassing when it contradicted their narrative about me. But once that success was publicly validated, splashed across the pages of a national magazine for all their friends to see, suddenly they wanted to claim association. Sorry, but that's not how it works. Instead of engaging with their sudden interest, I channeled my energy elsewhere. I donated $1 million to establish a scholarship for first-generation college students in computational medicine. I named it after my birth mother, who'd died when I was 12, the only person who'd ever told me my mind was a gift, not a liability. The announcement made regional news. The university held a small ceremony, which I attended in a simple white dress, giving brief remarks about how single moments of encouragement can change a life's trajectory. As I left the podium, my phone buzzed with a text from my father. "Your mother would be ashamed of how you've treated us. She raised you better than this." Something cold and clarifying washed through me. I stepped into an empty hallway and did something I hadn't done in months. I called him. He answered immediately. "Finally decided to acknowledge your family, have you?" "Don't you ever," I said, my voice deadly quiet, "use my mother to manipulate me again. I'm just saying what's true." "She wouldn't. You have no idea what she would think. You erased her from our home the moment Judith moved in. You put her photos in boxes. You stopped saying her name. That's not fair. When I was 14 and won the state science competition, you said I was showing off. When I got the scholarship to MIT, you told me I was being elitist for wanting to go. When I started my company, you called it playing around on computers. You have never, not once, been proud of me." Silence. "I just established $1 million scholarship in my mother's name. While you were using her memory as a weapon, I was building her legacy." Vivian. The lone term stand. The distance between us stands. Consider yourself fortunate that I helped at all, given our history. I hung up and returned to the reception, accepting congratulations from university officials with a serene smile that revealed nothing of the storm inside me. That evening, alone on my terrace with a glass of wine, I finally allowed myself to cry, not for the family I'd lost, but for the girl who had spent so many years believing she was the problem. I was finally free. And that freedom, hard-won and precious, was something I would never surrender again. 2 months after the magazine feature, a certified letter arrived at my home. The return address was unfamiliar, not my parents' house but somewhere in Bree's neighborhood. I signed for it with cautious curiosity. Inside was a business-sized envelope containing a check for $41,800, the full loan amount plus interest, along with a brief handwritten note. "Vivian. We sold the house. Your sister is letting us stay in her guest room until we find an apartment. The enclosed check covers our debt to you in full. I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I will say this, I was wrong. About everything. About you. Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become. I wish I had the right to be. Dad, no manipulation. No guilt trips. No demands for reconciliation. Just acknowledgement and payment." I held the letter for a long time, watching the waves crash and recede, crash and recede. His words were the closest thing to a genuine apology I'd ever received from him. Not "I'm sorry if you felt hurt" or "I'm sorry but we were trying to motivate you," just "I was wrong." After an hour of reflection, I took out my phone and sent a text. "Thank you for the letter. I'm glad you're settled. Take care of yourself." No warmth, no invitation, just acknowledgement. Because forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means freedom, from anger, from hope, from the endless cycle of hurt and disappointment. If you believe in setting healthy boundaries, even with family, give this video a thumbs up right now. How many of you have had to decide between keeping toxic people in your life or choosing your own peace? The hardest boundaries to establish are often with those who should love us most. Drop a comment below sharing how you protected your self-worth from those who couldn't see your value. And if you're new here, hit subscribe to join a community that understands that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. A week after receiving my father's letter, Bree called. I was swimming laps in my pool when her name flashed on my smartwatch. I tailed off and answered, curious what new family drama awaited. Hey, Viv. Bree. Everything okay? She hesitated. Yeah. Well, as okay as it can be with mom and dad living in my guest room. I couldn't help but smile at that. How's that working out? About as well as you'd expect. Dad's depressed. Judith's critiquing my housekeeping. My kids are walking on eggshells. She sighed. But that's not why I called. Why did you call? I saw the video of your speech at the scholarship ceremony. The one for Mom's Foundation. I hadn't realized footage had been released. And? It was beautiful, Viv. What you said about her, about encouragement changing the trajectory of someone's life, it made me cry. Her voice cracked slightly. I never really knew her. Not like you did. Our mother had died when Bree was only 8. Her memories were fragmentary at best. She would have been proud of you too, Bree. Would she? I'm not special like you. I don't invent algorithms or save lives or build empires. The vulnerability in her voice surprised me. For the first time, I glimpsed something I'd never considered, that perhaps Bree, the golden child, had her own insecurities. That perhaps being the favorite came with its own pressures and expectations. You're raising 2 incredible kids, I said softly. You're kind, loyal, and brave enough to take in our parents when they had nowhere else to go. She would have been very proud. Silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable but thoughtful. I owe you an apology, she finally said. I didn't understand what you were going through with them. I didn't want to see it. It was easier not to, I acknowledged. No, it was cowardly. I let them treat you badly because it meant they weren't focusing that criticism on me. I benefited from your suffering, and I never stood up for you. Her honesty disarmed me. This wasn't the script I'd expected. I appreciate that, Bree. I don't expect us to suddenly be best friends. Too much has happened. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. And I'm sorry. After we hung up, I sat by the pool for a long time, thinking about our conversation. The relationship with my sister had always been complicated, not by direct animosity, but by the toxic family dynamic that positioned us as competitors rather than allies. I'd resented her for being the favorite, she'd feared becoming the disappointment. Now, with our parents diminished and dependent, those old patterns were shifting. Whether anything meaningful would grow in their place remained to be seen. As my personal life adjusted to new boundaries, my professional life continued to expand. The acquisition deal that had made me wealthy also accelerated LifeCode's growth. With the backing of a major healthcare conglomerate, we launched in 17 new hospital systems across Europe and Asia. I remained CEO but focused increasingly on innovation rather than administration. My new role as Chief Innovation Officer allowed me to return to what I loved most, solving complex problems at the intersection of medicine and technology. Our latest platform, a patient-centered mobile application that democratized access to our algorithm, was breaking download records in the medical app space. For the first time, individuals could input their own genetic data and medication history, receiving personalized recommendations to discuss with their doctors. The press coverage was relentless. Morgan's Medicine Revolution, declared the Wall Street Journal. How one woman's algorithm is changing healthcare forever, announced Time magazine. The college dropout saving thousands of lives, proclaimed Forbes. With each headline, I thought of my father's dismissive words, playing with computers isn't a job. His contempt had become my fuel. His disbelief, my motivation. I expanded my team, hiring brilliant minds who shared my vision of accessible, personalized medicine. Among them was Dr. Naomi Chen, the mentor who had first believed in my algorithm years ago. She joined as our director of research, bringing decades of expertise and boundless enthusiasm. You know, she told me during her first week, as we walked through our state-of-the-art Florida research facility, when I first met you at MIT, I knew you were special. But even I couldn't have predicted this. I smiled. Not bad for a college dropout playing with computers, right? Not bad at all. She stopped walking and turned to face me. But you know what impresses me most? Not the algorithm, not the company valuation, not the global expansion. What then? The way you've remained true to your vision despite every obstacle. The way you refuse to let other people's limitations define your potential. She squeezed my arm gently. That's rare, Vivian. And it's why you're changing the world. Her words, coming from someone who had seen my potential when my own family couldn't, meant more than all the magazine covers combined. 6 months after being thrown out like garbage, I hosted a dinner party at my beach house. Colleagues, friends, my new boyfriend, people who saw me clearly and valued what they saw. As we laughed and talked around a table overlooking the ocean, someone asked, "Vivian, what's next for you?" I smiled, thinking of the new patent my team had just filed, of the clinic we were building in my birth mother's hometown, of the life stretching before me, unburdened, unlimited. Everything, I said simply. Everything is next. Later, after everyone had gone, I stood alone at the water's edge. The same ocean that had witnessed my tears now reflected moonlight like scattered diamonds. I thought about the journey, from the daughter they'd rejected to the woman who'd built herself anew. They'd called me worthless, thinking they were defining me. What they didn't understand was that in throwing me away, they'd set me free. Free to become something beyond their limited imagination. Free to build a life where I was valued not for pleasing others, but for the power of my mind and the strength of my vision. Some families are given. Others are chosen. And sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is to walk away from those who cannot love you properly and toward the person you were always meant to become. The ocean doesn't ask the shore to be anything other than what it is. It simply meets it, again and again, on its own terms. I've learned to do the same. If my story of rising from rejection to build an extraordinary life resonated with you, hit that subscribe button right now. Your worth isn't determined by those who failed to see your potential, it's created by your courage to believe in yourself when no one else did. Have you transformed pain into power? Share your story of triumph in the comments below. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone struggling with family rejection or fighting to be seen, share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful words we can hear are, "You're not alone," and your worth isn't defined by those who couldn't recognize it. Together, we're building a community of people who turned Get Out into Watch Me Soar. Join us by subscribing today.